Hey everyone, Samon, known as Health Allie, is a certified holistic health coach and functional nutrition practitioner. She's also a speaker, founder of Health Allie Lifestyle and Wellness, and has coached hundreds of women and men to redesign their health and life so they can get fit, energized, and pain-free in a way that's easy, fun, and sustainable. Allison is also the creator of several popular programs for men and women who are proactive and excited to take charge of their health, like De-Stress, Reset, Re-Energize, Rapid Renewal Detox, and the Healthy Without Struggle Blueprint. Allison is on a mission to help people course correct for genetic warning signs so they can love how they feel in their bodies, turn back the proverbial clock, and rock their lives. She believes that once people learn to recognize the signs their bodies are sending, they can make adjustments, get to the root cause, avoid, and even reverse dis-ease so they can live the best lives for themselves and their families. Allie, you ready to rock this? She's ready. Boom, baby. You are now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. We're so grateful to have you. This has been a long time coming. We've wanted to do this, so great to have you on here.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
It's really so amazing to be here. Your energy is so infectious. It's like, this is the place to be. If you're not here, where are you? Be here. So great.
Exactly.
You're amazing.
I love it. Thank you for that. And we're going to dive right in to the topic of the day, which is awaken your GPS. So, Allie, how do you awaken your GPS? How does that show up for you with your clients, with your life, with your daily activities? How do you do that?
That is such a great question, because, and using it as the GPS as an analogy, because there's, GPS, it's our intuition. And I think for so many of us, or for so long, we sort of shut out the GPS and it's sort of redirecting, turn around when possible. And I think I did that for years, just spinning around but I'm supposed to be going this way. But why is it telling me to go around? Listening to all of the other voices, or the voice that is in the satellite and not present here with me now, and not really understanding my circumstances. So I'm really going for the GPS analogy here.
I love it.
So, when there is road construction and it doesn't yet know that, and it's telling you, or it doesn't know that there's a stop sign, and it's like, go this way because it's the fastest way, but you have to do a stop sign through 2 lanes of traffic. And you're like, I can't get left here. Or I can't go through. That's never going to happen. And because the GPS is not really taking you into account. And so I love this analogy, because in functional nutrition, which is functional medicine, which is the approach that I follow, functional nutrition, you're taking in the person into account, not the diagnosis. There may be a diagnosis that has all of these various symptoms, but it could look differently for a different person in their situation, with their family history, with their lifestyle. It could look all very different. And it's so important for us to look at the individual, our unique biology, before we set a course to correct that.
So it's almost like with a GPS, there's the guidance, which it's kind of like the general rule, but not necessarily applies every single time. And especially with humans, the general rule and kind of like the guidelines of, I think typically it's like, go to school, get a good job, work really hard, or, go to the doctors, like follow their advice, do what they say. Kind of, it's like putting the authority and the responsibility outside of ourselves into the hands of someone else, versus our own internal, GPS or greatest possible self, that vision of ourself, who we want to be, who we trust ourselves to kind of be sourced from. That's really where the power lies. That's why we're here in life, and that's how we get the best quality of life possible.
Yeah, they say with meditation, like, that's how you can really connect with yourself. And I'm not a meditation expert by any stretch, but when I do go through the practice and I do tap in, you hear voices, and it's not voices, it's you.
Hmm.
It sort of, it clears out all of the clutter,
Yeah.
all of the monkey mind, and then you hear the answer that you kind of already knew
Mm-hmm.
is revealed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of times we know what's right, what we're supposed to, or what's, maybe not that we know what's right, but we know what's wrong.
Mm.
And for me personally, when I was on my health journey, I mean, I don't think that ever stops, but when I was on my healing journey, I just knew that I knew something was wrong with me. I knew something wasn't right. And I knew that the things that I was being told didn't feel right to me.
Mm.
Besides the fact that it wasn't helping, it just seemed like there's something else, there's something we're missing.
Mm.
And so I think we kind of intuitively know on some level, we just have to pay attention to what our body is saying. And it's sort of deep. It's not necessarily in the conscious mind, but it's deep in there if we tap in.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Cool. So we're transitioning, segueing perfectly. Great response. I love that. And let's start diving into what it is that you do. Tell our audience a little bit more about the nutrition that you teach people about and how you coach and empower people. Let's fill our audience in.
Yeah, so I am a functional nutrition health coach. And so what that means is I help people, I specialize in helping to demystify complex health issues. So this could be anything from weight loss to chronic pain, work with a lot of chronic conditions. And it's not necessarily what the diagnosis says, but I want to talk to the person. And I have it's like 70 something questions on my intake form.
Love it.
I want to get into the nitty gritty so we can figure out, it's sort of like a big puzzle and figuring out. So we're looking at food. It may be adding in food. It may be removing food. It may be a certain protocol that will heal certain things, but it's also, I like to say, I put on my detective's hat and I kind of look with my little magnifying glass to see like, what are we missing here? Because sometimes there's things that are not showing up in the way they're supposed to. So you have some sort of diagnosis, but then they come to me and they're like, well, I'm told I have fibromyalgia and I'm supposed to take this and I'm supposed to take that. I'm like, okay. And then I start looking at things. I'm like, okay, well, let's work on your gut. And suddenly things start healing and faster than they ever did before on medication and all that. I've had that happen with psoriasis, like in days. Constipation, they're going. Wow. There are so many diagnoses that I think people are looking for fitting certain criteria, and it's not always the case with humans. It can all show up differently. So what I do is work with an individual. I work with individuals and in groups to get clarity around what's coming up for them, what's going on, looking at their own family history, what their lifestyle is like, and what they're experiencing. Because sometimes people just don't listen to you. They don't believe you, maybe, or, because it's not on that list of things that they were trained with. I mean, I went through that for years where people just kind of was like, your what do you call your MRI? It doesn't show, like, it's inconsistent with what's going on. And I don't know. And I was like, I'm telling you that I'm in a lot of friggin' pain, a lot of pain. And it's partly what I do is listening to people. And it's sort of the sitting in empathy with somebody who is either sitting across from me or on the phone with me. I typically work telephonically, but whoever I'm with, engaging in a relationship with, I want to make sure that they feel heard. And oftentimes when they're talking, I'll hear it. I'll hear the thing that I'm like, oh, this happened? We sometimes forget about that. Like, I've had several people come to me for weight loss. This is like the new thing. They come to me for weight loss and neglect to mention that they had their gallbladder removed. I find out later through like their intake form, and I'm like, wait, hold up. Can we back up a little bit? You didn't mention that. Oh, well, that was years ago.
Irrelevant.
It's a major organ. We need to talk about this. Nobody talked to you about how you should eat without a gallbladder? No. Okay. We're gonna talk about that now. And this happens a lot. I feel like gallbladder is the new appendix. It's
Really?
just remove it. Yes, it's amazing. So finding the clues in what somebody is saying, there are clues in labs, there are clues in what they're saying, there's clues in their history. And we sort of put the pieces together because there's not usually one thing that causes disease. It's usually a whole bunch of different things. And it could be, and especially with autoimmune conditions, it's never just one thing like, boom, you got it. There has to be a genetic predisposition. There has to be some kind of trauma and a physical assault to the gut. And then that sets up the conditions for autoimmune to occur. Now I have somebody that I'm working with who kind of has all those things, but she doesn't officially have an autoimmune condition, Hashimoto's. So we are working to steer her away from that because we know all of the things. And when you know, then you can course correct. GPS.
So is that more of like she hasn't been like officially diagnosed, but you're looking at the symptoms, you're looking at how do you feel, and you don't like need to know the quote unquote diagnosis to start making corrective actions to have you feel better and feel alive and be healthy, right? Like you don't need to have a quote unquote diagnosis to say, hey, these things are going on. These are the symptoms. Hey, we noticed this might be out of balance. Let's start do you like test putting in certain foods and certain regimens to see what works, what the client responds to kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. So we work on healing the gut and we work on nourishing her body and nourishing her thyroid because it's in need. It's in need. It's in a weakened condition. It's not performing the way it's supposed to. And she just doesn't have the antibodies to officially classify her as autoimmune, but she has a lot of other markers. And her doctor hasn't officially diagnosed her, and it's not my place to diagnose. I'm not a doctor. So I'm just proceeding with, okay, we're just in healing. I mean, that's what I help people to do is just be their guide to help their own body to heal. Because we have the capacity to if we give it the right tools.
So I love where we're going. I want to like ask all these questions about healing and stuff. Let's go back a little bit and take us on your journey. What was your journey like? What were some of the challenges that you personally went through to get to where we are today? And how did you become this badass coach?
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in my bio.
Yes.
I was always a fitness enthusiast, I would say, even though I wasn't healthy or I wasn't a healthy eater, I should say. But I was the energized and gym goer and I cared about not getting fat. So I ate all of those diet foods and, I was listen to me. And then I started getting injured. I was very physically active. I would run races. And I hurt myself, like I got injured. And I went to the doctor and he's like, oh, you're young, you're athletic, you're fine. And I was like, okay, but this is taking longer. It's not the normal, I ran a race and I'm ouchy. It's like, oh, couldn't walk. Yeah. And because I was young, it healed, but not very well. And so this same thing just kept coming up. And I would hear the same thing. Fine, because I'm so active. And then it got to the point where I couldn't walk. Wow. And people had to carry me and I just walking up and down the stairs. I was working in New York City at the time and everything is all up and down stairs. And I couldn't do it without crying. Like waking up in the morning was so painful. Sometimes I would call out of work because I don't know if you realize. So my pain for me was in my knees, my lower back, and my butt. And so we think of, okay, your knees are really important, but we don't even realize how much you need them for everything. Just getting out of bed, you need your knees because they lift they help lift your leg up.
It's like it's a leverage point for the rest of your leg, which has a good amount of weight on it.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of the first thing that moves up when you lift your leg is the knee. Couldn't do that like without like, ooh, it was so swollen. Just walking to the train in the morning, it was about a 10-minute walk. Halfway there, I was swollen. I was crying. Yeah. And sitting, I couldn't sit. So when I had a commute, I was always like so uncomfortable. And I used to blame the furniture. Mm. I used to yell at my parents because they had crappy furniture. Mm. I was cranky. I was miserable sitting to go see a movie. It just couldn't. And it was like this dull ache that I felt all the time, just couldn't get comfortable. When I was in motion, it was good, but then my knees couldn't take too much motion. So it was a huge mess. And I started seeing all of these different specialists all over. I mean, I was in the right place if you were going to have something like this. All of the top athletes were going to the doctors that I went to, and they didn't know what was wrong. I went to neurologists. I had all of these tests. They do EMG tests, which they're shocking your nerves to see how they fire. And like, that hurts. It's electric shocks in your nerves. And they had to do that a few times because it was inconclusive. I'm like, this is not good. I was on medications. Now, during this time, while I was seeing all of these specialists for chronic pain, my dad died. And that was a huge shock because where I was the health enthusiast, he was the guy who wrote the book. He was the most physically active, lean and muscular, loving life guy. And he was only 50. And he just died. And it turns out he had heart disease that we never knew about and that nobody tested him for because he was so active. He had just had his 50-year-old checkup where they do the cholesterol and the colonoscopy and everything was okay. They didn't think to do a stress test because literally what they said was, well, you do one all the time. Not hooked up to monitors, he doesn't. So I was already feeling low, insecure, miserable, depressed because my body hurt and I felt 85. Then my dad died and I was like catatonic because he was my person. And it's just like, how can this happen? Because you think the person who dies of heart disease is a smoker, eating Big Macs all the time, is really obese. We have this picture of what these things should look like. He didn't look like that at all. And so it perpetuated my problems because now I was having panic attacks and I was just super duper depressed. And it went on for years, well, about 10 years I was going through this. And then finally, and still seeing specialists, but nothing was working. One of the drugs that they had me on was recalled because it was causing heart attacks. Isn't that good? Now knowing that I had a predisposition I'm at risk of heart disease, I was on a drug that was causing people to have heart attacks, and they eventually took it off the market. But I loved it because it made my body not hurt. And I was like, oh, don't take that away. But I had to, right? And this is, again, going back to GPS. It's so great. So there was a time, there was a turning point, and there wasn't it wasn't like that. But there was a moment where I was like, enough. This is, what they're having me do is not working. I was in traction. I mean, I did everything. You name it, I did it. Reiki, just you name it, I did every alternative thing. I had some relief from acupuncture, but the thing that really changed everything for me, this is crazy. You ready? I'm going to let everybody know. You may not have heard of this. It's totally new. It's totally crazy. You ready? Get your pens ready. Nutrition.
Oh my God. Oh my.
Have you heard of it?
What's that? What is that?
It's amazing that in 10 years, nobody ever talked to me about that.
That's crazy.
And knowing what I know now, looking back at how my family ate, we ate healthfully like Americans do, but it was a very low fat diet, which we now know is really, really bad for your heart, especially when you have family history. My grandmother, his mother, had several heart attacks that we chalked up to, she used to be a smoker, because in those days everybody smoked. We should never have been low fat. Like there's various things that I can go back and look at, and now it's too late. And so fortunately I had a wake up call for me, but I was thinking, you know, maybe these are warning signs that I have the same thing that my dad had. I'm just getting them now. And when I was introduced to a health coach who started talking to me about my diet, and I started feeling better in the first day, wow. I was like, holy crap. And so there was like the voice that was like, there's something, this is not right. You're not supposed to be this disabled. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. My whole life was, I can't do this because it hurts. I can't sit for that long. I have to sit on the aisle. I can't sit in that seat. I can't sit in that chair. I need a footrest. I can't stay. I have to go to my doctor. I can't go on that vacation. I can't sit through. Everything was, I can't do this. And so I had to make sense of what happened to him, because it made no sense. And anybody who knows him was like, you line up 100 people, he'd be the last guy, the last guy. And so the only way that I could sort of come to grips with it, and not that it's okay, it's never going to be okay, but I have to do better now that I know what we were doing that wasn't so good. And I want to help people. So a few years ago, I went and had a cardio calcium scan, and it came back perfect. Perfect, literally, is what the doctor said. And I don't know if it had improved since I changed my life and changed my diet, but all I know is that I am at high risk. My father died of heart disease. I am at risk of heart disease. If I continue doing the same things that he was doing, I am likely to develop heart disease as well. What I want to impart to people is, no matter what your genetics are, however tragic, and even if you've had your own health struggles, you can completely revert. Heart disease is reversible. Alzheimer's, they've discovered, is reversible now. There's so much that you can do to regenerate in your body, from brain cells to tissue in your knee, like everything. You can sort of become the bionic person, but with your own body material. If you want to, and if you take different steps. And I feel like knowing what happened back then is great information that will give us the direction for the future. And so that's how I got here today, because when it started working and I started feeling better, and I was like, there's something to this. And you just get addicted. So now, where I used to be addicted to candy, now I'm addicted to health and learning health and talking to people about health. And it's just endless what there is out there to learn and impart.
I love it. I love it. So in terms of the fascination with health and talking to people about that and learning, why don't you share a little bit more about like what you're learning about, what you're, studying, and what's exciting you in health, and, what you're learning about and growing in these different disciplines, and like adding these skills to your repertoire. I'm curious, like, what is exciting you these days?
Oh my goodness, everything. Well, I love the field of epigenetics, because it's kind of messed up, but it's fascinating to know that things you do can go 3 generations down. Things that you eat, things that you take in, not even on purpose, can affect your grandchildren. So whether it's obesity, predisposition for cancer, infertility, like that all can be passed down. And so again, it behooves us to not be selfish with, oh, I'm not fat, I can have that, because that's how I used to think. Like, or I can have that, and I'll just work out real hard and it'll be fine. It's not about the calories. I work a lot with people with around weight loss, and I don't ever talk about calories because I don't care. We need calories. It's the quality of them. Because low calorie crap is crap.
Yeah.
It's not gonna help. So I love epigenetics. I love muscle testing. That's really fun. And that's one of the things that was so fascinating. The practitioner who I worked with, who kind of set me on this path, he did muscle testing with me. And this is how he showed me what sugar was doing in my body. You can't tell somebody don't eat sugar. And I don't not eat sugar. It's just looks very different than the way it used to. I was an addict for sure, hands down. And he took sugar. So first of all, he took my leg because he was helping me with my knees, took my leg and held it and said, resist me. And I'm strong. And I did. I resisted him. And then he took sugar out of a vending machine. I did not even eat it. He put it on my leg and took my leg and said, resist me. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move. And I was like, what? And then he did the same test with, you're going to love this. He did the same test. He had 2 little medicine, pill vials. Same weight, same size, same everything. And they each had a piece of paper in it, but they said a different thing. And he's, actually, I don't even think I knew that. He just said, here, hold this, right. Put your hand out, resist me. And I could hold it, then switch the other one to the other vial, hold your hand out. I couldn't, I had no power. Right. And I was like, what? They're the same. And he's like, well, open it. And so the one that I was strong with, you know what the piece of paper said?
What?
Peace. You know what the other piece of paper said?
What?
War. I had no power, and I'm pretty strong, and I had no power to a little piece of paper that said war. So that is some fascinating stuff.
Wow. So how do you apply that through nutrition and foods with your clients? How does that knowledge of there's certain substances and frequencies that different materials or words or foods contain? How do you apply that?
Yeah, well, it's again, you can't tell somebody, so they have to experience it themselves. And I kind of use these 2 experiences that I have. It's like, I need you, I invite you to pay attention. I mean, so we just to have it empirically, we chart it. I have them log it. And when they are compliant in logging it, and we look at it together, and it's like, oh yeah, when I had that, this is where I felt awful. And this is what I have, but I always have that. I'm like, and so there's always this resistance, but I always did that. I know that, and you're here though. Yeah. Right? We never want to think that it's something that we're doing. It's always something external that happened to us. I mean, that's why I went to so many different people to help me. Meanwhile, it was me that needed to help me. Wow. I mean, ultimately, I needed guidance and support, but it wasn't revolutionary.
Right.
It was food.
So is there something tactical that we can do? You mentioned about logging and recording how we feel. Is that something that we can do on our own? Do we need to have a coach for that? What kind of correlations would we look for if we were to do that exercise on our own?
Well, you can absolutely do it on your own. There are even apps, there's the Cara app, which can track everything. Okay. I mean, it's just tracking. It's just I call it a food, mood, poop journal. And we look at everything, and you can see trends. And that's what I look at, is trends, not necessarily the one thing that stands out, because that could be an anomaly, but we look at a trend, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, you're having this heartburn every time you have eggs. And so I don't need to tell you to not eat eggs. You tell me how you feel. Because when you're feeling it on the inside, that's the best I once drank a bottle of Bailey's. I'll never drink Bailey's again. You just need one bad experience and you're like, I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good.
Yeah. Wow.
Revealing a lot today.
I love it. Tracking your food, mood, poop. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we do that, we can notice how we feel.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's out there and you're looking to like who are the people who should want to do this exercise? Who would be a good candidate to go through this tracking to check out their food, mood, and poop? And also I want to know what to look for in our poop, but before we get there, like who and what kind of people should go through this?
I'm having a little problem with my computer. I'm gonna have to plug in. I don't know what's happened. It's weird. So anyway, we can do that. Shall we walk and talk?
Let's do it.
Okay. Hang on a sec. Hang on. Okay, we're gonna walk and talk. Okay. Sorry, that's so weird. It should be fine. I don't know what's just happened. Okay. Okay. I thought, okay, I had good light, so I moved, but all right. Okay, we're back.
Yes.
So sorry. Okay, so you wanted to know, answer the question again.
Who should be doing the tracking? Like what kind of people, like if you're experiencing these symptoms, if you're not happy, if you're not, empowered, if you're feeling low on energy, who should be doing these kind of tracking and,
Yes.
be interested in the conversation?
Yes. So anybody who is experiencing chronic issues, specifically like digestive upset, you definitely want to track what's going on. And the other thing about tracking tracking your food, tracking your mood, tracking your poop, it may be coming from your gut, but the symptoms are not the traditional symptoms. This is what I feel like I keep saying over and over, is that it doesn't necessarily have to look like what the book says. You could have digestion issues that are manifesting in your skin, that are manifesting in your brain, in your joints. So it can look very different. So anyway, people, if you're having a chronic, this is like the fastest, cheapest, easiest way to see if there's something going on is, okay, sorry, we're here, let's go. Tracking, oh, it's so bright. Okay. Yay, and now I'm glowing. So it's having the food, mood, poop. Well, I'm so sorry, man. Okay. Are you okay with this? Is this okay?
It's perfect.
Okay. So it's just the fastest, cheapest way, because there are so many tests that you can have done, and that can be cost prohibitive and time prohibitive. And when you're tracking it, you can see an at a glance. You can use an app, you can use a paper. I'm old school. I like to write things down and just see. And I would say, if you're unsure, then definitely work with somebody, work with a health coach, see what you're maybe not seeing, because you know how sometimes when we're in it, we can't see it because we're too close to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trained to do is see like, oh, but sometimes it's really revealing. Like I had somebody say to me, I was like, so what do you see? Like what have you noticed? She's like, well, I eat a lot of bananas. It's like, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And if you're somebody who needs to watch your sugar, maybe having so many bananas isn't such a good thing. So you wanted to know things to look for in your poop? Yeah.
Let's go there.
Yeah, totally. Let's go there. I've never talked about poop and gas so much since I became a health coach.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to look at the color. You want it to be a nice brown.
Okay.
You want to make sure that it's really, the ideal would be like an S.
Okay.
So nice, no breaks, just like a nice S, solid S. Do you know why?
Why?
Because that's the shape of your colon.
Oh.
So that means that your food got processed and it went through.
And so, like when it's waiting to go out, so to speak, does it stops in a shape of an S and it's kind of like waiting there, and then when it goes out, then it's like, okay, time to go, and then it like retains the shape for the most part. It tries to.
Yeah. Take a look. You'll notice. But it doesn't. It's, sometimes it's more like a sausage, and that's okay too. That's okay as long as it's solid. But when it's like pieces, or when it's hard and dry, so you want it to, you don't want it to plop, because when it plops, that tells you that it's older. It's sitting up there for much longer. Right. So like,
why is that, like it's hardened, or it's like compacted too much?
Yeah, it's just been there for a long time. There was nothing to push it out, because you need fiber. There's two different kinds of fiber. There's soluble and insoluble, and insoluble fiber pushes that out. So if you're not getting enough of that, nothing is pushing it out. So it's just kind of hanging there until you get enough to actually push it out. People, the typical American has about 40 pounds of poop in them.
What does the average American weigh so that like 40 pounds of poop would be in them?
A lot.
That's
right.
Great.
If what is it? 60% of America, is that the statistic? I think now 60% of Americans are overweight or obese.
Crazy.
Yeah. This light is nuts.
Oh man!
I was looking for my.
Right?
I'm on fire, right?
Put some angelic music in the background. Yes. Yeah. We need some phoenix flames in the background.
Oh man!
So this is awesome. So tell us more what we should know about nutrition, about planning out our nutrition, being effective with our nutrition. Any other like hacks or top foods that we should know about, or any other things that as a health practitioner, nutrition coach, we should know.
Yeah, well, eat the rainbow. That's kind of the easiest way to remember it. Is, and I love Michael Pollan says, if it's made in a plant, don't eat it. If it comes from a plant, eat it.
What's the difference?
Well, if it's made in a plant, there's often, not everything, but there's often a lot of synthetic ingredients. And so you could take a real food and strip all of the nutrients out of it, and then it becomes a food-like substance.
Right. So I'm curious, made in a plant, like a production facility plant, or made... Okay.
Correct.
I wasn't sure. Yeah. It was like made in a plant, in a,
no.
like a...
No. If it's made from a plant, so that would be in a plant, but from a plant. Yeah.
You see how that could kind of...
Yeah.
They're both plants. I love it.
For sure.
So if it's made in a plant, processed foods, no bueno. Totally get that. Makes sense.
Yeah.
If it comes from a plant, then it comes from the ground, comes from the earth, and it's as close to nature as possible.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's the easiest rule of thumb. And that doesn't mean that you have to be vegan or vegetarian, but no matter what, getting more of the vegetables is never a bad thing. It's always a good thing. Always. Now, saying that, some particular vegetables may not be right for you. So even if it's healthy for the large portion of the population, you still may have an issue for it. You might not be able to digest raw foods. You might not be able to tolerate certain foods. You might have a sensitivity. And it's not because that food is bad. It's because there's something else that's happened that needs to get cleaned up. And once that is healed, often we can then reintroduce the food and you'll be able to eat it. But sometimes the food never comes back. Like I have a client who loved bell peppers and every color of the bell peppers and was so excited to put bell peppers of all colors and everything. And it turns out we did food sensitivity testing with him, and he had several surprising intolerances. And of course it was all of the things, his favorite things that he was having all the time. And bell peppers.
Oh.
And that was the most severe. And so he can't even tolerate a pepper if he goes to Chipotle and he says no peppers, but it slips in because it's next to something else like the salsa. Mm-hmm. He will know there was a pepper in this. He'll have a reaction.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's all comes down to bio-individuality. So there's lots of rules. So the thing that we like to say in functional nutrition is true but partial. So there's all these rules that are true, physiological facts for human beings, mm-hmm. but it's not always true all the time, depending on the person. Wow. So we have to take everything with a grain of salt, because if you're doing everything, these are the people that I work with. These are the people who have been to everybody and they're doing all of this stuff. They're following it. They've taken this out. They're gluten-free. They are, just all of the things they're supposed to do or that they hear they're supposed to do, and they're not getting relief because that was me. I'm doing everything. I need help. And what we peeling back the layers, mm-hmm. realize is that, that is a good way to heal this condition for most people, but it's not working for you. So we have to do something else. We have to back it up and clean up what, there's some kind of, something is not, it's just not being tolerated, or it's not converting. The chemicals are not, they're not speaking to each other. The hormones aren't communicating. There's something else wrong here. And so we back it up. It's not always about the food, but what your body can do with the food. Yeah.
That's so interesting. How everyone's chemistry is different based on their genes, based on, what they've already consumed, right, in their life that has predisposed them to process chemicals in a certain way or not at all, or whatever it might be. So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we should look out for as red flags? I know we talked a little bit about like chronic conditions, chronic stuff that comes up. Is there anything else that we should be looking for or paying attention to in our food or around the process of eating? Maybe it's, certain desires or any kind of tendencies to eat certain things at certain times, or, like anything like that just comes up for you.
Yeah. Well, okay. So sugar junkie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if you're craving sugar, I love talking about, you see how much we've talked about sugar already? You didn't even ask about sugar, and I'm always going to go there because I love it. It. If you're craving sugar, and I should say, I do not crave sugar. Like I'm making jokes about it, but I don't have that craving anymore. I can see all of this stuff on a table, beautiful cakes and cookies and all that stuff, and not even have a pang for it at all. If you are having cravings like I used to have, there's usually something underlying. It could be physiological, it could be psychological, it could be emotional. Because sugar affects the same opioid receptors in our brain as cocaine does.
Wow. And
research has shown that sugar is actually 8 times more addictive than cocaine.
Wow.
So So when I say sugar junkie, like seriously, junkie.
Wow.
And when you're craving sugar and then you get that fix, you feel so good, you get that high, and then of course you crash. And I actually I have a whole talk about energy and what sugar does and all of that. And so you have this crash, and so your brain knows, okay, I need carbs or sugar immediately because I need to get high again. Wow. And so it's a combination of both your insulin, your blood sugar, but also your brain saying, I need it, I want it, I love it, it's so good, we need it, it gives us energy. And you're not even thinking about it. You're like, I know it's not good for me, but I need that caramel macchiato. I also need that bagel and that donut, and I need all of it right now. And so it could be, again, because you're in this sort of cycle, and that's more of a physiological thing, because you introduce that stuff already, and so you're sort of stuck in that wheel. But it could be that you are low in fat. You're not, I don't mean in your body, but I mean in your intake, dietary fat. If you are not getting enough fat,
and the right kinds of fat.
Yes. And so it's sort of like the yin and the yang.
Mm.
And if you have too much of the yang, you're going to want the yin, and the sugar is the yin. Yeah. So that it's always about balance. So there's that. And then there's also, like, for me, a lot of it was emotional. Mm. I am a emotional eater. Mm. And sugar was my crack that would make me feel better. So when my body hurt, I medicated with sugar. When my boyfriend dumped me, I medicated with sugar. When my dad died, I medicated with lots and lots of sugar. Mm. Nobody said it wasn't good. They just said that you'd get fat. Mm. So I knew I can eat this, but I work out. So it's all good. Meanwhile, I was riddled with pain for 10 years. All of this pain all over my body in my 20s. Mm. And nobody said anything like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have that.
Damn. Sugar. Killer. It is a vicious SOB.
It is. But on the other side of that, because I don't say you can't have dessert and don't have chocolate and don't have sugar. I love dessert. I bake all the time. It's just very different. Yeah. Very, very different than it used to be. I don't have any of the processed stuff. Most of the stuff I eat, I make myself because I don't, unless I know who made it and trust that person, or I know what the ingredients are or where they came from, it's not worth it to me because it makes my body hurt. Like I know that now. It's so ingrained to me that I used to have an M&M dispenser on my desk. I was always going through that thing. And it was at work, so I shared it, but it was always full. It's always getting eaten and always full. Skittles, Skittles, not a fun size pack, but, so you're like all puckered from the sour. Yep. God, I loved that. Like, I remember how much I loved them and how good they tasted.
Yes.
But the thought of eating it is like, just completely grosses me out. But I make brownies and cake, and I have ice cream. And it's just different. So now it's coconut ice cream. When I bake, I use Lakanto, which is monk fruit. So there's not a glycemic effect. And the flours that I use are different. I'm using almond flour or cassava or garbanzo bean flour. So it's just so different. And it's like 4 ingredients. That's it. And I make it myself. And it's delicious. And so I promise you that if you're like, oh, I can't, there's no way. You can. There are ways. And there's a million ways to figure out your favorite things. It's one of my favorite things to do is say, like, what's your favorite comfort food? Okay, I'm going to make it. I'm going to find a healthy upgrade to make it. And I do that because I love that. I eat pizza. I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, but I eat pizza. I eat ice cream. I eat mac and cheese.
Wow.
Why not? It's good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. There's always options, right? I think that's just we live in an and world, not an or world, right? How do we have this and that? How do we have health and delicious, delectable, the things that we've always loved, just a little bit different, but hey, be willing to adapt, be willing to try on new perspectives and see things from a different angle, and you can find and learn to love when we give it a shot.
Yeah, because if you are deprived of something, if you're told you can't have something, you're going to want that so badly, and you're going to be resentful, and it's not going to last for very long. That's why dieting doesn't work. And that's why it's about finding what does work and going and proceeding from that space.
Yeah. Awesome. So Allie, we're beginning to wrap up now. What are the final takeaways and the new reality that our audience gets to step into because of their time invested here with us?
Awesome. Oh, you're asking me for takeaways. I'm just like, just keep talking. Yeah. So I want you to know that I want you to be your own driver, be your own CEO of your body, and listen to what feels right, what feels wrong. Even if somebody is telling you there's nothing wrong with you, and you're like, no, I know that there is. Get help. Talk to somebody else, somebody who kind of thinks outside the box, because you're probably not crazy. There might be something wrong. Your feelings are legitimate, and listen, and also be willing to make the changes, because there is not a magic pill. And so I think that's the most important takeaway. Is I'm saying all this stuff like it's easy and it's healthy without struggle is my mantra, but it does take a little bit of effort on your part, sometimes a lot of effort.
Training and discipline to get to a point where, okay, we've broken through the initial resistance. You gotta rewire some neurons. That might not be the most fun process, but after you do that and you pick up some momentum, then it's like it takes over.
And figure out what's right for you. Like that's the biggest thing, is your unique biology. Those are the most important things, is to listen to your body and figure out what works for you. It may not work for everybody else, but what works for you and what's going to keep you happy and sustainable.
Awesome. Beautiful. Allie, how do people stay connected with you, and what do you want them to do next?
Yeah. Well, this is perfect, because on Monday, I'm starting a Healthy Habits Challenge, Healthy Habits, Healthy Life. Yes. And it's totally free, 5 days, all next week. And so we're going to talk about all of these things, but actual practical steps that you can do and add into your life and just set this new foundation. And they can find me at, it's a bit.ly/Healthy Habits, Healthy Life.
Cool. Or
go to healthallie.com. And I'm Health Allie on social media and all that.
I love it. I love it. Well, Allie, it's been an absolute pleasure with you here. Thank you for sharing everything about your journey and the challenges that you had to overcome, and your own like defeat. Like this, you were defeated. Life was kicking your butt, and you got through it. You focused on where you wanted to go. You focused on feeling better. You persisted. You looked for an answer, and you did whatever it takes. And really, it's really inspiring, your journey and how committed you were to that. And there's a lot of people who wouldn't have been able to keep going. There's a lot of people who would have stayed in that depressive state or spiraled downward. And thank you for having the courage and the willpower, the discipline to pull yourself out of that, and then become a shining example of how people don't have to suffer with that. It's really, really inspiring, and I'm excited to see your story and your journey share and ripple throughout the world, and create even more transformation in people's nutrition and their happiness and health in life.
Thank you, Chris. This has been such a pleasure. I apologize for all of this, but
it's all perfect.
There's probably a reason for that. Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
What's the gift?
I'm enlightening. Hopefully I'm enlightening people.
I love it. So, Allie, you're the best. Keep shining and have the best week ever. Keep up the great work, okay?
You too, man. Thank you so much.
Take care.